Much and I'm proud to introduce to you my brother Dennis.
Thank you, Bernardino. Good evening, everyone. So, before we start, can you tell the person beside you, makikinig ka, ako naman matutulog. Okay. Loving God. So, that was our previous topic. So this time around, we will talk about the second part of the Christian ideal, which is loving your neighbor. So so of course we've learned from Brother Adele what loving God is all about. But this time, the big question is, o sabi nga nila, ang tanong ng bayan, how do we manifest our love to God, being as human beings? So that's the challenge. So the way to do that is by loving our neighbor. Okay? So what is loving our neighbor? So one day, Jesus was preaching in front of a crowd, and one of the persons there was a Pharisee. So a Pharisee is they're considered experts of the law. So and at that time, they were trying to trap Jesus in what he says. So this one Pharisee in the crowd asked Jesus. He asked him, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment?" So Jesus answered back, and it's written in Matthew chapter 22, and I'll read. Jesus said to them, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. The second is like it. You must love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang the whole law and the prophets." So that's what Jesus replied back to the Pharisee. So, what does it really mean to be to love your neighbor? So let me share you a story. But before I get in trouble and continue my story, I'd like to first introduce to you my loving wife. I'm biased because I'm the speaker, so the best wife in the world, Grace. And just a disclaimer, she's not the character in the story. So, this is about my first love, or call it puppy love. Alright? So, when I was about 13, 14 years old, I was young and stupid. And if you ask me what my definition of loving your neighbor was, I tell you that's dating the girl across our street. So the girl lives literally across our house. So this is my definition of loving your neighbor. So I would spend I spent weeks, months, daydreaming about holding her hand, kissing her on the cheeks. Of course, PG and PG-12. So, and one time I was having this conversation, but it actually is more like an argument with my mom because of the time I've been spending with this girl. And I suddenly, out of maybe anger, I blurted out, "I'm gonna marry this girl." You know, well, let's just say that she did not feed me for a week. Of course, from that experience, well, we broke up, so obviously I ended up with the best wife in the world. So, but the thing is, that was a bad example of how to love your neighbor. I'm giving you, you know, if you're kind of describing the word, and this is what not to love your neighbor is about. Okay, so what really is loving your neighbor? So, to describe, for me, I thought of, you know, focusing on the two key words. So one is loving or love, and the other is neighbor. So first, let's talk about love. What is love? So, although, you know, the word love it may seem like, you know, a sort of a fuzzy feeling, or a vague emotion, but you know, the reality is love drives everything we do. If you think of it, it's the essence of everything we do here on earth. So why do we work? Why do we work so hard? Because we want to provide for our family. And the bottom line there is because we love our family. So it drives love drives everything we say, we feel, we think, we do. And you know, the word love is really a powerful word. Let's say, I remember this last night we were having a meeting, and after a prayer meeting we discussed about what we're gonna prepare for the Christmas dinner. So one of us suggested or mentioned sinigang, and then this one brother suddenly blurted out, "I love sinigang." So imagine saying I love sinigang versus I like sinigang. With just for this particular brother, just hearing the word sinigang made him smile. So that's how he loved sinigang. So that love is very powerful. That word love, it defines, you know, extreme feeling. So in Saint Paul's letter to the Corinthians, so he described the characteristics of what a Christian love is, and let me read it for you. So it's from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 to 7. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. Love is not pompous. It is not inflated. It is not rude. It does not seek its own interests. It is not quick-tempered. It does not brood over injury. It does not rejoice over wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. So that's a very beautiful description of what love is from one of my favorite saints, Saint Paul. So what does it really mean to love? So a Christian love really is to give a part of yourself. So an example is serving others, like what our service team is doing here, why we're here for. So we want to serve you. We want to serve the Cause Christ community. Love is not just a feeling. In fact, love is an action word. So love is doing. Love is an act or is an action, really. So, when we act out of love, if you notice, that's when we feel the closest to a person or others or a neighbor. When we show that love through action, that's when we feel closest to them, to our neighbor, really. And that brings me to my next point, which is neighbor. So, what is neighbor? So, the literal meaning of neighbor is the various people around us. So including ourselves. So that's our neighbor. But in the Christian context, neighbor is everything good about the people around us. So it's looking for the good in others. So that's the context of a neighbor. So not just a person. It's looking for the good in others. And loving, supporting it, appreciating it, whatever that's good in them. So that's and bringing out the best in people and also ourselves. So that's the Christian context of being a neighbor. So the Lord also calls us to, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. So I remember this, probably most of you have heard of this story about the Good Samaritan. So long story, the story was about a man who was victimized by robbers on his way to Jericho. So this man was a Jew. So a priest passed by, and when he saw the man, instead of helping him, the priest walked on the other side of the road. And then, after a while, followed a Levite. A Levite is an assistant to the priest. So, same thing he did, he walked on the opposite side of the road instead of helping the man. And now came this Samaritan. As you know, Samaritans were in conflict with the Jews. So they hate each other. In fact, they despise each other. So some Jews would not even consider Samaritans as people. They consider them animals. So that's how they hate each other. So, but this man, this Samaritan, when he saw the man, the victim, so he stopped, and it said in the Bible that he poured oil and wine. I don't know about the wine, so it could be, the man could be diabetic. Wine is very sweet, so I don't know about that. But he said the Samaritan poured oil and wine over the wounds and then bandaged them. And then after that, he took him to an inn and cared for him there. And he even left some money to the innkeeper, so that he could continually take care of him until the man recovers. So imagine that. Imagine doing that to your enemy. So when the people asked Jesus, so who then is the neighbor to that robber's victim? So Jesus answered them, whoever gives the man mercy is the neighbor. So, which means obviously the Samaritan, even if they're enemies. So loving others or loving your neighbor is also accepting them. So sometimes, just sharing my personal story, because being an eldest of four, you know, I'm always tempted to, when I see my siblings, my younger siblings, doing something that I do not agree of, there's always that temptation to correct them. But what ends up happening almost every time is, I offend them, or worse, we fight, or we don't talk for a while or for a long time. So I guess the other thing about loving our neighbor is, just being accepting. Accept them for what they are, all flaws and idiosyncrasies, So, in fact, I am myself was a recipient of a goodness of my wife. When my wife and my Grace and I met some 14 years ago. We were married now for 12 years. So I was a totally different person. I couldn't even imagine standing here in front of you doing this stuff. This is uncool. So, but, without prodding, without telling me off, without saying that you have to change this, you have to change that, so we can be together, she just accepted me, you know. And of course, she would pray for me, being the very prayerful woman that she is. So she would continually pray for me. And somehow, I guess God touched me. And I saw the beauty of, of the life that she was trying to present to me. So here I am in front of all of you. So I owe all of this to my wife, and I was told that, and I probably all of you are it's for most of you it's a long day, so I'd like to conclude this short talk. So I'm fond of trivia. So, and I've once read of this trivia about learning that, when we attend this kind of talk, so you're listening, so in a matter of an hour after the talk, we forget we retain only half or 50% of what we heard. So that's after an hour. So that means that's for the average person. So, and I'm not an average person, so I probably will forget maybe 80%. So, because I have a goldfish memory. So, after a day, this is interesting. After a day, we forget 70% of what we hear tonight. Okay, and then after a week, almost 90% to almost everything that we heard we will hear tonight, we will forget. Okay? But this is the thing. If I have one key takeaway that I want you guys to remember after this talk is, the best picture of love is Jesus Christ on the cross. That's why I have this picture here. So take a moment to observe that picture. So if you notice the cross, so the cross has two elements: the vertical wood, which is the post, and then the horizontal. The vertical represents our love for God. That's why it's pointing up. And then the horizontal element, or the beam, represents our love for our neighbor. And then Jesus himself, if you look at him, Jesus on the cross, Jesus is the perfect model of love for others. You know why? I'll give you a scenario. Jesus, before he died, he washed the feet of his disciples. And after that, he encouraged his disciples to do the same to each other. So what is it? So washing the feet symbolizes humility, for one. And then second is service. So as I mentioned a while ago, service is one of the manifestations of Christian love. And then, finally, as we all know, Jesus offered his life for all of us, for our salvation. So you can just imagine how much love he has for us. In fact, so it's John chapter 15, verse 13 says, "Greater love has no man than this, that he lays down his life for his friends." So that's what exactly Jesus did for all of us. So I want you to remember that the best picture of loving our neighbor, loving God, and love in general is Jesus on the cross. So I'd like to end my talk with a short prayer. So please bow your heads and close your eyes. And let's slowly show our sign of our faith in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God the Father, as we end our session tonight, Lord, we'd like to ask for your grace to give us a heart like that of Jesus, that that we may be able to love others, our neighbors, especially our families, with an incredible kind of love. And also, Lord, tonight we declare that we will try to love more, and we will serve more whenever the opportunity gives it to us. In Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. May God be praised.
Thank you, Brother Dennis. Wow, that's really a memorable one for me. Now, bro, just to let you know, I will take that, I guess, forever. I will remember that. That so beautiful, no? Now, looking at the cross, how the Lord really loves us so much. Bro, for sure, matatanda ko yan. Forever. Anyway, so, wow.